The fact of the matter is, when we start to look at the deployment of these devices, we can hide them. We can put up the Frankenpines, as we call them. We can put them in church steeples. We can disguise them in flagpoles and a variety of other places. But we can't disguise the need for them. We can't disguise the demand for them. We can't disguise the fact that we've got large parts of the United States, for example, that don't have broadband. They simply don't have it. There are parts of this country that I can point to, and I can absolutely prove to you beyond a shadow of a doubt that from a networking point of view, that's a third world nation over there, and yet it's in the United States.
Where we are right now is pretty rural, and there is no cable TV here. In terms of broadband, that really is, for all intents and purposes, the state of the art right now. What we have are communities that are topographically isolated, and it's very problematic to try to deliver services to those communities in any sort of economic way. I've been involved with a couple of radio frequency projects, wireless projects, that were on the face of things, looked like they were really achievable because of the investment in the towers and the spacing between the towers. The problem came when you had to buy 1,000 service units for the individual homes at $500 a piece. The whole economic value of the proposition kind of fell down.
Feasibility is always an interesting issue for rural companies because things are expensive. But we always look at when we do a technology is how to serve everybody, because we don't have a big customer base and we can't just do one building and we're going to get all this revenue. We have to figure out what we can serve everybody with and how to affordably do it. And the other thing is if we provided a service in town and then somebody 2 miles out hears about it, they're going to want it. So when you deploy it, you've got to figure out a way to deploy it for everybody.
Most communities that are starting to look at this stuff and how we get this to everybody is they're thinking about bringing a fiber or multiple fibers in as deep as you can go. And you terminate the fiber there, and then in some cases you put up a tower at the end of that optical cable, and you put one of these low-power radios there, and using the low-power radios, in effect what you do is you create a wireless canopy that can penetrate into these deep valleys and these nooks and crannies that would otherwise not be served because it's just too expensive to get in there. And so what you end up with is a hybrid solution that takes care of everybody's needs at one level or another, but fundamentally bumps the floor up for everybody so that everybody at least gets something better than what they currently have, which in many cases is nothing or simple dial-up technology.
The danger of not having broadband connectivity is that you tend to fall behind, that there are assets, there's a growing body of assets that's available via the cloud, via the internet. And we see the quality of that improving every day. There was a young lady that was taking an international business course via virtual high school. Virtual high school is students that have a designated instructor, a designated teacher, somewhere out on the cloud, out on the net. And the students are on the cloud. And it happened to be that the international business class, the students were on the cloud all over the world. They weren't simply kids from Colchester High School. And that was the feedback that we got from the young lady who was taking the IB class. That I am talking with someone in India, I'm talking with someone in China. They are my peer age-wise, but I'm learning about them and how they live as well as the greater goals of international business. It opened my eyes and it opened her eyes as to a greater world that's available.
When I watch what telecommunications does, for example, to deliver telemedicine to remote areas, not in Africa, not in Thailand, not in the remote reaches of Latin America, but in rural America, where I see people having access to medical care that they never would have had before simply because we can deliver it to them remotely. That's magic. When I watch two classrooms on other sides of the world that are able to communicate with each other in real time, that's magic. None of that works without the telecom network. And so when you start to see that kind of magic emerging, you really start to look at this stuff and say, okay, this is much more than just making phone calls. I mean, this network, which is invisible when it's working, very visible when it's not, is really the catalyst for an awful lot of social change and hope creation and revenue growth and business opportunities and competitive advantage, things that we never think about in terms of what it's really doing for us as a society.